Hey everyone, welcome to the E2 Effective Elders podcast. Visit us at e2elders.org and please share this good word with others.
Hi, ladies. We are so glad to have each and every one of you with us today. Welcome to the E2Women's podcast. I'm here with my friend Christina and our friend Alison Hankins. It's good to have you ladies with us today.
Good to be here.
Yes, hello. Good afternoon.
We're looking forward to a nice conversation about, or a fun conversation about stronger friendships. That's been our topic this month. And Alison has some good, new, different perspectives on what a friendship is, what a friendship means, how to be a good friend. And so we want to dive right in, but first I want to give a special thanks to CDF Capital for their participation in this through their sponsorship. We're so grateful for all that they do for E2 and E2Women. So Alison, we're just going to kind of turn the beginning of the podcast over to you to ask you to share a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do. You're a mom, we know, but give us a little bit about your background.
Yeah. Well, thanks again for having me. I'm so glad to be here. So I'm originally from Kokomo, Indiana, and grew up in the church and ended up going to Johnson Bible College, now Johnson University. And my degree is actually in counseling and Bible. However, God directed me into children's ministry. And my first children's ministry was actually the church that I grew up at. And it was a smaller church of 300 or so. And I oversaw birth through 6th grade. Was there for about 3 to 4 years and then moved to the west side of Indianapolis and was at Chapel Rock Christian Church near Ben Davis High School and was there for about 5 to 6 years. And they had a preschool as well as their children's ministry for birth through 6th grade. And so I had the opportunity to get involved in, they had a preschool director during the week, but I still was a part of that ministry to the community. And that was a lot of fun, as well as being a part of Sunday morning programming, worship experiences for kids. And then God brought me to Indian Creek Christian Church, or the Creek. And that is where I ended up meeting my husband, Justin. Mm-hmm. And we've been married for 5.5 years. It'll be 6 in the fall. And we have 2 babies with Jesus. Baby Hope died during the midst of an early pregnancy in 2019. And then our son Benjamin was born with a unforeseen fatal birth defect and in 2020. And then we have a perfectly healthy little girl, and she will turn 2 the end of the week. And so it's a little bit about me. We worship and we serve at the Creek, and that has been a part of our home, our church home, for almost 11 years, 11, 12. Yeah, depends. Justin's been at the Creek longer than I have worshiping, but yeah, that's a little bit about us.
So are you beginning to see a little bit of those terrible twos that we often hear about? Or do you have a perfect little girl? I hear
she's perfect. She's perfect.
She is. She's definitely a little sweet and sassy. She just depends on the moment, right? But yeah, she's very strong-willed and independent, and she knows what she likes and what she wants and when she wants it, and kind of like us all, where it's like when we don't get our way, we can be a little disgruntled about that.
Sure.
So yes.
Well, and a while back, you made a significant life change. So mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about that, and tell us how your friendships played into that. Whether you had conversations with or encouragement from, just give us a little snapshot of that.
Yeah. So, like I said, I've been a part of children's ministry for almost 19 years. And a significant part of that that time. I was a single woman, and but I always had the desire to be married and have a family of my own. And God just, it didn't happen until later in life for myself. And Justin and I, when we were dating and talking, I had shared with him, the desire to have a family and potentially to stay home. My mom had stayed home with me when I was younger, and but just didn't know. I loved children's ministry. I loved creating worship experiences for kids and connecting them with small group leaders, consistent leaders in their life that were pointing them towards Jesus. I loved church camp. I loved my job. I loved ministry so much. So actually we didn't know, we just trusted God. We prayed about it, the two of us, after, while we were dating, and then while we were married, and then we weren't expecting, but it happened that we went through two losses, the loss of baby Hope and then Benjamin. And so we're like, okay, well, I just continue working and serving. And then, when faith came along, then we just continued to trust God of okay, what does this look like? And we thought that we had childcare lined up, and it ended up falling through. And so then we would try different things, other childcare, and that kept falling through. We ended up with a family member caring for Faith for about a year and a half. And that was good. But then this family member was ready for a change. And so we were looking for childcare again. And everywhere we looked, everyone we asked prayed about it and said no, or different daycares that we looked into, we would have to wait almost a year for there to be an opening for her. And so we were on several wait lists, and so we just kept trusting God. We prayed about it. And then I actually went on a spiritual retreat with a friend from our small group. She also was on a spiritual retreat praying about things. And even though we went together and we knew what each other were praying about, we went, she went off with the Lord, and I went off with the Lord as well. And I was like, okay, well, I just felt like God was answering, the desire of my heart to stay home, as well as literally every door was shutting by there not being anyone else other than myself. And Justin even said, he's like, I'll stay home. I know you love ministry. I know you love what you do. I'll stay home with her. And I was like, you know what? I can always get back into ministry at any point, and it can look different too. I just would really enjoy this time with Faith. And so, we just trusted God, but literally all the doors shut because there was no openings or no one available. And those who were the friends who were praying with us for childcare and or for is this God opening the door for me to stay home, were people within our small group, Justin and I small group. Those peers, those friends were praying with us for that decision. Also, I have what I consider second parents, David and Kathy Wheeler, from my time at Johnson. They kind of adopted me as their second daughter. They were praying about it with us. And then my sister was praying about it, her and her husband. And then some other friends, that one is a childhood friend that I've known my entire life, that we grew up in church together. And another friend we had met when I was at Chapel Rock. And so there were just certain friends in different seasons of life that God had brought into me, that I had shared with them and invited them to be praying about it. I also shared it with co-workers of the need for childcare. I didn't necessarily share the request of if I don't get childcare, I'm staying home, but was open in with my supervisor and boss there at the Creek, as well as my team within the children's ministry staff, of like, this is a prayer request that Justin and I have right now, is we don't have childcare. And in order for me to continue to work, like, yeah, we need that. So,
Well, and so I hear you say that as you went through the process, as you were making the decision, you had a lot of people involved in your life, people that you trusted their wisdom and their advice to walk alongside you, that you didn't do this alone.
No. I'm so grateful, again, that, I believe that God designed us not only to have a relationship with him, but he designed us to have relationships with other people. And that's just shows us another, if we think about our relationship with Jesus being like a diamond, there's different facets of who he is. And one of those beautiful facets of a reflection of him can be used through the friendships that we have within the church body. And so I'm just very grateful and thankful that the different friendships that I have, some of them are peers, my age, but then some of them, like I said, my second parents are older and wiser and older in their faith and have walked. And so and there were men and women like within our small group, so God used all of them to just go to the throne with us, so we weren't going by ourselves, to ask for God's wisdom and discernment and peace in making this step in our faith, because going from 2 incomes to 1, is definitely a step of faith as well, of trusting God's provision for our family as well. And so we're just very grateful for that.
Well, now that you've made that change, that you're the mom at home, have any of your friendships changed? Have your time is different. You have different ways that you can use your time. So have your friendships changed through that?
So yes. So, one level of friendships that has changed are my friendships with my coworkers. So when I was on staff at the Creek, I was on a children's team that all shared an office. We were together, Sunday through Thursday, working side by side, shoulder to shoulder, knee deep in ministry. And so we shared not only an office, but we shared our lives and with one another. And we were friends. We cared about each other, and we cared about each other's families. And then beyond the children's team was the whole staff. And so obviously those friendships have changed because of proximity. I'm no longer in the office. I'm no longer having those conversations on a daily basis with those friends. And so that's changed, because even though we still worship and serve at the Creek, I'm not seeing them as often. And so that was really hard, I'll be honest, and still feels a little kind of weird, even though it's been 6 months, to go from that level of friendship with a coworker, where you see every day and know things that they maybe even their close friends don't know, because they're sharing with you on a daily basis. But to go from that to just seeing them on a Sunday morning, and they're busy, they're working, they're serving, and so that time is different. That exchange to go from sharing life so closely, so often, to just almost like a chit chat on Sunday of like, hey, how are you? Good. It's so good to see you. That's just different and feels weird. And so we've had some of the ladies that I was really close with, we've had to be more intentional about either texting one another or putting something on the calendar to actually get together to share, because it just doesn't happen as easily as it did before. But my friendships with those in my small group have still continued. I still see them on a weekly basis. So that's still the same. My friendship with my childhood friend or my friend from Chapel Rock, like we still will call or text or occasionally get together. So that hasn't necessarily changed. friendships that have maybe added or are different would be my involvement with MOPS, Mothers of Preschoolers. So because my schedule has now changed, I'm, more available, I guess, for play dates. And so creating new friendships with maybe some other moms who have kiddos around the same age as my daughter. So that is different. And to be honest, that being a part of that ministry, not everyone who participates in that knows and loves Jesus. And so I have the opportunity, like I didn't have before. I was completely surrounded by Christians a lot of the time. Being a part of Mothers of Preschoolers or MOPS has afforded me the opportunity to maybe get to know some people who haven't embraced Jesus as their Lord and Savior, or maybe they do believe, but they are not actively practicing, their faith, or they're not a part of a church family. And so I have the opportunity to, I feel like, extend an invitation and for hopefully to build a relationship and friendship where they feel comfortable that if they were to consider being part of a church family, maybe they'll think about the Creek because they have that connection to someone who's there.
Well, I know you and Christina have connected through MOPS, I think, if I'm correct. So I'm going to kind of turn it over to the two of you to have a conversation about MOPS.
Well, why don't you explain what MOPS is, which I never had the I never had the ability to stay home as a working mom, or as a mom. I always had to work full time. So that was a foreign concept to me. I had no clue what it was. So can you just tell us a little bit about MOPS, how it started, what you do with MOPS, and then I can tell everyone a little bit about faith.
Yeah. So MOPS is an international organization, and I'm trying to remember, I think that it's either 40 or 50 years old.
It's been around a while.
Yeah, it's been around a while, and it was formed by some moms who were like, we need friendships, we want to connect. And I think it started in someone's home of just being intentional together. And so this organization, it grew, obviously, to be international. And so it does have Christian underlines to it, but it's open to any mom of a preschooler. So from my understanding, even moms who have a child that goes into kindergarten, they can still be a part of the MOPS group. However, after that first year of kindergarten, then
they get the boot.
then that mama graduates. And so I think that there are different churches that might host groups. And so at the Creek, the way that it's been organized, there is a leadership team, and there's a few mamas that are the key leaders and help kind of schedule speakers or the calendar for the year. But the rest of the leadership team has someone that's in charge of hospitality or discipleship or making sure that things are being communicated. And myself, along with another mama, Sarah, we help lead MOPS kids. So when the moms get together, we have children's programming for the little ones. And so we help recruit the volunteers for that and work through the lesson plans and the schedule and snacks and supplies and get that all situated. So that's how I get to be a part of it. And then the way that the Creek has it is the mamas meet every other week during the school year. So August through May, they're getting together, and they do take breaks for fall break and Christmas and spring break. And we have different speakers come. There's also some video teaching. All the mamas are in small groups or discussion groups. And we share a meal together. We have breakfast. All the mamas take turns bringing in some food. So we get to actually eat without having to feed someone else or sharing what's on our plate with someone else, or being touched by someone while you're eating. So it's just really nice. You get to have adult conversation and with other ladies, and then hear a talk or point of some sort, and then discuss it at your group table. We try to do a serve project during the year. And like I said, we also have play dates or different times that even like mom's night out. So there occasionally there'll be times where it's not just for the kiddos, but it's just the moms, and go out to dinner or something like that. And that's been it's been really good. I've enjoyed it. I've been a part of it now for 2 years.
Well, I had the privilege of helping in the nursery with MOPS. And when Allison asked me what age group I was interested in helping with, I said, well, wherever you need me. You know, I honestly didn't have a preference. Babies are cute, but you know, they poop. So I was put in the walkers room, which is, you know, usually 18 months to 2 years. And I had the privilege of working with Faith, and she is just an absolute joy. She's ahead of the class in every way, shape, or form. She loves to read books. She's just an absolute joy. So I just think that God has blessed you immeasurably with the ability to stay home with her, because these years you're just never going to get back, and she's just perfect. And you and Sarah did such an amazing job with MOPS. It was my first year ever having anything to do with it. And, you know, I just think that what the ministry that you left, I know you miss it, but you have such a powerful ministry with MOPS. I was really impressed that the moms that started the year finished the year. And, you know, we have a lot of moms coming that aren't part of a church, as you mentioned. And what a ministry that these women that don't even attend the Creek are sticking with it. And I could just tell, I could see as the kids grew that the moms grew. And it's such a neat organization, and you and Sarah put so much into it. And of course, I miss Faith and Hannah so much. So we'll have to have a play date once that playground gets installed, because they do, you miss them. And even our kids that really struggled, some of the kids had, because of COVID, you know, some of these children had truly never been in childcare. So they had either been with a parent or a grandparent or maybe an aunt or an uncle, but some of these children had truly never left their mother's side. And so we had a couple kids that really struggled, and it was so great to see their progress and to see the friendships of the moms, because even some of the moms would come by and they would say, oh, how did so-and-so do today? And because their heart broke for the other mom that was in their group that was literally struggling, because they knew their kid was off struggling. So I think those friendships are really important. And just to see you and Sarah working together too, I mean, having girls the same age, I'm sure is helpful, but you guys did such a great job. And I just loved being a part of it. And just your ministry is, your job in ministry is far from over. So, and you give the best hugs. You do. I don't know where you learned to hug, but your hugs are
my mom.
You linger just a little longer just to get the tears really flowing, you know. So you're a good hugger. That's a ministry. It is. It really is. So I have a question that we didn't really talk about ahead of time, but it's something that I was thinking about before this podcast, and I was curious for both of you. How do your Christian friendships differ from your friendships with non-Christians? Because that is something that I struggle with. I want to believe that I can be the same in every situation. But I struggle with that. So if I'm struggling with it, I'm sure I'm not the only one. You know, my Christian friends, I have no problem asking for prayer and saying, this is my struggle and will you pray for me? My non-Christian friends, sometimes it feels a little bit more like I'm wanting to vent versus ask for prayer. So I, you know, came from a secular career. This is my first time working in ministry or in the church at all. So I just wanted to know if you guys had any advice for me personally on how to manage those non-faith-based friendships and still be authentically myself, but not pushy. I don't know. So any advice, anyone?
Well, I think for me, it would be, I probably use different words. Well, I know I
Okay.
use different words because, for instance, my non-Christian friends would have no clue or very little clue when I say something about the Holy Spirit.
Mm.
I can talk about the power with outside me that I lean into and I trust, and I know that God is there, but I may not use the word Holy Spirit specifically until we have a deeper relationship and they really know who I am and they know my heart. So that's probably, it just as a quick response, one of the things I can think of. Allison?
Well, I'll be honest, I feel like because of being in ministry for so long, I really was like at work and then even outside it. I had a lot of Christian friends. I didn't have very many non-Christian friends. And so I'm still learning how to do that because and the only, I guess, non-Christian friends that I can think of are some of the mamas within the MOPS group.
Sure.
And so how I interact with them, I guess, like, I still feel comfortable talking about Jesus or my faith or what's going on because we're meeting within a church for those MOPS meetings, and Jesus is definitely mentioned. And so there's already a springboard there, I guess, for me to jump off of with him being the center of it. But then if we were to have a play date, so now we're not inside of a church, but our kids are playing and we're going to have lunch, I'm going to still, like, when I'm getting face lunch, we pray together. And I'm not going to change that. There's other people having lunch with us. I just invite them to be a part of it. Of like, this is who we are. This is what we do. And so sometimes I'll say a prayer, or we say a recited, like kind of like a sing song kind of a prayer, and it's short. I mean, because faith's only two. So it's like, it's not too intimidating. And usually others just join in with their littles as well. But I will say that I think I don't have close friendships with anyone who's not necessarily a believer. I do have maybe some family members or extended family that haven't, like, they're really, maybe they are believers, but they're not, you can tell that their faith is not as far, they're not as far in their walk. And so it does change. Like, I am not going to share everything, with them as I would maybe a stronger Christian or believer. So our level of friendship is just different because I don't necessarily feel like the same Holy Spirit that indwells in me indwells in you. And I feel more comfortable and open to share, anything and everything with. But then there are some people that, say that they're a believer, but yet I don't necessarily see it in the way how they talk or their actions. And so I don't maybe share as openly with them because I just don't feel like that our Holy, that we're connecting on the same level. But yeah, that's something that I've struggled with, is like, God, I don't have those relationships of any non-believers. And so that does make sense of like, how do you share with others? I know that my husband is surrounded by, in his workplace, it's a secular workplace, he's surrounded by people, especially there's a huge percentage of men in his work field. And so he's surrounded by people that aren't believers. And so they're rude and crude, and, and so the way that, he interacts with them is he's just different because he's not talking like they talk. Or engaging in the things that they do after work. And so that makes him different in that regard. But when he's talking, again, it's just a different level of friendship.
And I suppose that's what we're called to do, is to be different and to have, hopefully people see in us something that's different, that maybe on first pass or at, it takes time for them to notice that the difference is real. We're having a golf outing for E2 in July, or excuse me, in August. And one of the things that a few people have asked, people in my family actually, are we going to serve alcohol? And no, we're not. You don't need a beer to have a good time. So just when you have that intersection of faith-based friends and secular friends, and you just, your worlds collide, and really that's, there's that song that says the church should look more like a hospital, than anything. We're all broken, and we should all be, coming here and being welcome. And I think sometimes it's easier to say, everybody's welcome, and we want broken people in our lives, because sometimes those broken people can be really difficult to deal with, and friendships can get really muddy because of just that fundamental difference in faith. So I was curious if either of you had dealt with
one thing that looking back on my years in the secular world professionally, one thing I can remember, kind of back to your point, Alison, about living in a different way, just hoping that people see that I live different. That always resulted in questions. So why are you different? And then that opened the door to those conversations. Well, here's why I'm different. I believe that Jesus died for the forgiveness of my sins. I could have those conversations then, but it was really a matter of allowing God to open the door and the person to walk in and ask the question, rather than me being on the, I don't want to use the word attack, but me being
on the defense. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I think, Alison, that you've left the ministry, but you've started a whole new ministry. Absolutely. So you have MOPS, and you have that precious baby girl Faith that is just thriving and growing, and she told me she was going to have a tea party for her second birthday. So yes. I'm sure that that is going to be a blast, as she told me that with a mouthful of donut at church on Sunday. So she's just pure joy, and I just love her to pieces. And we love you, and such a joy to watch you get to be a stay-at-home mom now, and fulfill that lifelong dream. And hopefully more babies in your future someday. You sure do make cuties. So I wanted to just thank you so much for your time, for your years and years and years of ministry. You have kids that you started in ministry with 19 years ago that are in college now. And that's just, that's a huge testament to your steadfast ministry and just your dedication. And you are somebody that is 100% you, 24/7. I can attest to that. So thank you so much for your time, and thank you to CDF Capital for their continued sponsorship. And we will see you next month for our podcast on Stronger Faith.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alison. Thanks, Christina. Thanks, ladies. We will see you next month. Have a good one.
Thanks.